Welcome to the Sewcial Hour Podcast, a podcast for sewists by sewists. I'm your host, Audra.
And I'm your host, Bethany, and we are here to talk about how to make time for sewing. And that seems like a pretty simple thing when you say it out loud, but when we started diving into this topic, I realized it is not always easy, and life gets in the way, and we're going to hopefully give you some helpful tips in this episode that maybe you hadn't thought of, and maybe help you prioritize your sewing since it is so important to you. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you're obviously invested in your hobby and your craft. So I'm excited about this topic.
Yeah, I am too. And I think there's kind of a recurring theme in our episodes as of late in making time for the things that light your soul on fire. And I think we're just going to kind of keep hitting that drum because it's something Bethany and I feel super passionate about. I think in this episode, we're definitely going to give you arm you with some tools and help you realize that sewing is more than just a frivolous hobby.
Right. Well, let's kick off with our icebreaker. And today our icebreaker is, what's the most unexpected time or place you've managed to sneak in a little sewing or stitching? Audra, what about you?
This was easy because this happened like not too long ago. I was making my Veronica vest for my little summer suit, which hopefully by the time this airs, I have posted some photos of. I need to take some. But I was sewing the buttons on the vest while getting my hair done. Full hair foil highlight action, sitting in the chair. I had a little bin for my threads.
Mm-hmm.
I had my scissors clipped to me. I was just sitting there sewing all my buttons on while getting my hair done. Like I said, hair foil, the whole deal. I was surprised more people weren't looking at me sideways.
I love it. I've actually done that with crocheting while getting my hair done. People thought I was crazy, but I was like, I have to get this done. My nephew's going to be born soon. So you just got to do what you got to do and make most of the time. Plus, I just can't sit still for hours. I always take something to do. I've taken my laptop, I've taken books, I've taken crochet. I will find anything and everything to do while sitting there in the chair. For me, we kind of talked about it in a previous episode when we were talking about retreats, but I took my sewing machine with me in my carry-on hard shell suitcase on a plane when I went to H&H in Chicago, which was great. Set it up in my hotel room. But several years ago when I went to the beach for a vacation, like a family vacation, this was not a sewing trip. Most of my travel is sewing or sewing industry related, but just a family vacation. I took my sewing machine, I put it out on the balcony. We had a condo that looked right out over the beach. And I sat there and sewed on the balcony of our condo with the beach in the background. And it just doesn't get any better than that. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. I'll take it. I'll take my sewing anywhere I can, even if it's a family vacation. So while everybody else was off doing whatever or taking a nap or whatever, I'm not a napper, so I would sit outside and sew.
It's the perfect backdrop.
I would love to hear what you guys have done. What are some creative ways or places that you snuck in some sewing time? Let us know over in our Facebook group, The Sewcial Sewists. If you haven't joined, go search for that group over on Facebook. We always include a link in the show notes so you can click that and go find it and request to join. It's a fun private group where all of our fun listeners and us get to hang out and continue the conversation after the podcast. Let's dive into this topic.
Yeah, and we named the episode Sewing in the Margins of Life. I think we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and how we can fit in the things we love into our daily lives. Mm-hmm. And I'll kind of roll in here. I am going to preface this with busy is one of my least favorite words. I hot take, and please don't dislike me for this, but it just feels like an excuse word to me. When I hear people say, I'm busy. It is like nails on a chalkboard. Some people don't like the word moist. Some people don't like the word verbiage. To me, it's the word busy. We're all busy. We all have a lot of stuff going on.
And the moment you get something done, guess what? You still are busy because there's always something else to do or that needs to be done. So it's just like a revolving door, and it doesn't, like you said, it's an excuse, but it doesn't hold any value.
It doesn't hold any value. So when people say, like, oh, what's going on? And be like, oh, there's life's really
They're
full
busy.
right now. Well, and you say life's really full right now because you might be busy, but busy to me kind of feels like it's bad, but there's a lot of full things in your life, and there might be things that cause you stress. We can be caregivers, we're working, we're parents. We have all these things going on in life, and it's how we manage those, both to manage our stress levels, but also to
Mhm.
fill our tanks. Because ultimately, you get one go round on this blue marble. So, how can we make sure that we utilize it to the best of our ability while serving others, but also serving ourselves?
I agree. And I think it's important to kind of just talk about like we kind of put pressure on ourselves to be productive. And so it becomes an excuse to not sew or make sewing feel frivolous or optional. And while it is optional to do, it's a hobby, it's important to invest in that time because it's investing back into yourself. If you don't balance the craziness of life and responsibilities and adulting with something that brings you joy, you aren't going to be able to find the joy in your life on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis. And so I think it's really important that we remind ourselves that while it is a hobby, it is worth investing in because you're investing in yourself. And I mean, if you're happy and, have that little spark of joy and you get that satisfaction of something you did for yourself, then that translates that and passes through everything else that you're doing in your walk of life from day to day. So I think it's really important that we give ourselves permission and to not use being productive as a reason to not do the things we want to do. I kind of struggle with this, to be honest, Audra. Like, because I do so and create for a living, I do struggle with obligations that I have to sew versus sewing for me and for fun. And because they look similar, it's not that I don't enjoy sewing the things that I've, signed up to do or, getting paid to do or come with my job, but it's not always what I want to sew in the moment, and you kind of have to push through it. But like I have to go, it's okay. And we talked about this in a recent podcast. It's okay to like not turn on the camera and just sew this for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this kind of ties into that as well of like giving myself permission to just sit and sew for fun.
Well, and it's even more than that. It's the sewing for fun versus sewing because you feel like you have to, but stepping back even bigger, going back to that like
Mhm.
caregiver, parent, taking care of your home, etc. It's the I have laundry to do, but I really want to sew. I have a yard to mow, but I really want to sew. I've got to take our children to this thing, to this thing, to this thing. And how do I fit it all in? We sometimes feel like sewing is a luxury because we have to find those little, because we feel like we're stepping away from the things that life expects of us to take time for us to sew. And also, I think sometimes because of the monetary value associated with sewing, we feel like it's a luxury thing. So we've got this financial luxury mentality and this time luxury mentality because we've got laundry and washing floors and yards and kids and all the things pulling us in
Mhm.
all these different directions, and also caregivers. Some of us are caregivers for people with health issues. So it feels very much like a selfish, luxurious venture to step back and take some time for ourselves.
Yeah.
That being said, those times are so critical. Self-care is so critical. And I've mentioned this in other podcasts about it being the pressure valve release of things going on in life. You really have to have those self-care moments because if you're not taking care of yourself, you definitely do not have the energy to take care of others. And that feels very selfish. It feels very luxurious. But at the end of the day, even those 10, 20, 30 minutes, which we'll talk to a little bit later, is really, really important to keeping your cup full so you can be good for yourself as well as being present for others.
Truthfully, one of the best things I did for myself, two of the best things I've done for myself this year was outsourcing things I don't enjoy doing that were weighing on me and preventing me from enjoying my time or my sewing or whatever it was, my family. So I found ways to be able to outsource those things. I'll give you those examples. And these may not relate to you, but I want to share my struggles and things that were slowing me down. First one being, I do not enjoy video editing. Long form video editing puts me to sleep. I couldn't tell you how many times I've fallen asleep with my computer in my lap and my fingers on the keys, video editing with my AirPods in my ears, hearing my voice over and over and over again. It's my least favorite thing in the world. I love making videos. I loathe editing videos. So I put it out there earlier this year that I was looking for someone, and I connected, actually one of my followers, her husband does video editing and edits her YouTube videos, and he's familiar with editing hers and has done a fantastic job with mine this year. It's taken the weight off, because what it's done is it's freed up my queue, because what happened is I was getting a backlog of videos that needed to be edited. And then I was like, well, I want to film this and make it a tutorial, but I wouldn't because I have all these other videos that still need to be edited. So then I was like, well, why even bother? Because I'm not even doing these. And I felt like it was like holding me back. So that released that, and it's been a huge benefit to me. The second thing that I've done this year, and this is personal, is I've hired someone to come clean my house every 2 weeks. Never thought I ever would. But with my son going off to college, I mean, I didn't really realize just how much the teenager in my home really helped with some of the household chores. Him being gone to college and not having that here. And then, you know, Brett and I travel so much, like things just weren't getting cleaned like I wanted to. And it was creating stress for me, because then I found that we were spending what little free time we had together on the weekends cleaning. I said, well, what can I do to make this not a financial burden? So I've stopped going to my favorite coffee shop, you know, at the entrance of my neighborhood that I post about all the time. I only go there once a month now, and that's on the Saturday I have my sewing club. That's my little treat to go to sewing club, and I usually get a couple extra coffees for my girlfriends. I don't go there during the week anymore. And honestly, it's fine. Like, I can make coffee at home. There's no reason I can't. It justifies me being able to not have a financial burden to replace that. And so what it's done is every 2 weeks, someone comes and cleans my house, and it smells so good, and they get it all done in like 2.5 hours. By the time I get through all of the house and all the things that they've done, it would have been time to start all over again. And this is just vicious cycle. But now I don't have to do that. So we just do some light tidying throughout the couple of weeks, and then they come in and deep clean every 2 weeks. I mean, they wipe windowsills. When was the last time you wiped your windowsills? For me, I just wanted to share that with you guys, because it's not something I'm like, oh, I have a house. No, I've realized this year that there are things that are holding me back, and my time is so valuable. I think part of it was I've turned 40, so now I feel like the clock's ticking. I know that sounds really morbid, but like, I've got to prioritize my time. There's things I want to do. I want to invest in me and the things I want to do. What can I eliminate? Brett and I decided, let's take that off the plate, because I hated that when he would come home from traveling too, that he'd feel obligated to do that, but he wasn't here making the mess, you know? So I was like, we've got to take this off of our plate. And it's been a blessing. And after I shared that publicly on Instagram, because I was kind of hesitant, I don't know why, so many people messaged me like, one of the best things I ever did was have someone come and help clean the house, because we just get, like you said, really busy with life, and we want to invest in the things that we enjoy doing, and we want to make memories, whether it's with our kids, our families, our friends, or just with ourselves and what we're making. We want to spend our time doing the things that we love. There's my 2 cents on that. Maybe this is my chance to say, give yourself permission to find ways to eliminate the things that are holding you back or taking too much of your time. Those are 2 examples I can share that I've done this year that have made a huge impact for me.
And I think that segues well into kind of us giving some tips on working sewing into your schedule. One of the first things, which is a drum that I will continue to beat, and you guys are probably sick of hearing it, is the power of 10 minutes. I should like copyright that tagline or something, really, at this point. It's the power of 10 minutes. 10 minutes can be so beneficial in regards to sewing, whether it's planning what you're going to do, prepping what you're going to do, sewing a step in your pattern or whatever you're doing, just making marks on fabric and just stitching. The power of 10 minutes to mentally reset and put yourself somewhere else from where you currently are is great. And then also it just gives you a step forward. So for example, before we started shooting this episode, I have something coming up and I have 10 minutes. Why don't I dive into my closet and decide what project and how I'm going to do it? And let's see what I have. It was 10 minutes of me just kind of assessing my next move. And I feel like I made so much progress. I didn't
Mhm.
actually turn on my machine and sew anything, but mentally I went into a creative zone of, I have to do this. I would like to do this project. What about this? And it allowed me to mentally free up and just relax a little bit. What that kind of is breaking down those projects into micro steps.
Mhm.
And it's okay, these 10 minutes, I'm going to pick out my fabrics. These 10 minutes, I'm going to make sure I have all my tools and supplies. These 10 minutes, I'm going to make sure I've got my rotary cutter out. I've got my machine threaded. I've got my iron set. I've got everything I needed. And then these 10 minutes, I'm going to press my fabric. Well, if you think about how much laundry you can fold in 10 minutes, or how you can dust the house in 10 minutes, or how we can get in debacles with our children over homework for 10 minutes. Like 10 minutes, we can get a lot done. Don't underestimate those and break down your projects into micro steps. And that makes it feel so much more manageable and less, I guess, selfish that you're
Mhm.
taking the time to do it. Because your kids are in the shower, take 10 minutes. You have the house to yourself, take 10 minutes. Find those little margins that we talk about to make some creative headway for yourself.
It is so good. I was actually had a chat with someone just the other night. I kind of expressed I struggle with ADHD and managing time and all of those kind of things, but I've learned some fantastic practices from an amazing manager I had 10 years ago that has actually truly altered how I manage everything in my life. And we were talking about some tips. She's recently figured out that she falls into the same bucket that I do, as many of us do, and she was needing some help. And so we were talking through some of these things, and I told her, I said, I time block my calendar. I time block my calendar, but I never put anything back to back. I always give myself 10, 15 minutes between to get up and move, to get water, to go outside and just put my face in the sun for a minute because you get busy with work and stuff. But I time block my breaks, and those actually have been helpful because sometimes I'm going, okay, well, I know tonight I want to work on that project. Let me go ahead and pull out my fabric. Let me go ahead and press it. Let me go ahead and find the matching thread I need. Let me just go ahead and gather. Let me go ahead and print off the pattern. Those kind of things. So like you were saying, like there's those little time blocks. That's like my little self-care moments that I'd put in between my stressful moments or my hyper-focused moments so that I can feel like when I do get done at the end of the day, I'm not having to start from scratch to do that project, that I've already done a lot of the prep work, so I can actually sit down and sew and enjoy the process. So I love that you mentioned that. I don't think we'll ever stop talking about the power of like a 10 to 20 minute break. It's so powerful. And let's talk about how you may not always find those moments, but especially with it being summer and your kids may be home or you may be on the go. So let's talk about family. Family impacts all of us. Yes, my son is off to college, but he's home for the summer. And there's a lot of things that I still have to deal with, even though he's gone during the school year. But I think it's really important. And one thing that I've always done with Brock is he's always been a part and around my creativity. I've gotten him involved. Now he comes to me and goes, can you fix this? Can you make me this? And when we go fabric shopping, he's like, ooh, I like this fabric. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let me make you something. Like he loves it now. He loves it so much because he's been around it his entire life. It inspires his creativity. He knows that if he wants to make something, he can come find it probably in my sewing room, craft room. So giving them exposure to it is actually really good for children. Don't be afraid to have them in your space. Obviously, make sure it's safe. Like we don't want the rotary blades out and open or sharp needles or pins, but just know it's okay to create around them. Get them involved. There's so many fun crafts that they can do even at a young age. My mom had me cutting felt and stuff with like little kid scissors, and then she would stitch it up. And there's kid safe needles that you can teach them to use when they're a little bit older and to hand stitch things. So I would definitely encourage getting them involved, especially if they express any sort of interest. And then once they go to bed, especially the littles, use that time in the evening. Maybe it's one day a week or one night a week that you say, okay, the kids are going to bed. I'm going to sew this one night a week. Or, maybe your partner, your dad, the dad, whoever, your husband will do bedtime that one night a week. so that after dinner is done, you have a few hours to enjoy sewing. And that's their time with daddy doing it, and you get to go sew, or vice versa, whatever the case may be. But just know that you can work it in and make it a part of the routine where you don't feel like you're missing out on your kids. It doesn't have to be one or the other, I think, is my point I'm trying to get at, is you can incorporate your family, your kids, your spouse, your partner into what you're creating and doing. I think that you'll find that they want to be supportive of you and they want to see you create and do. And one of my favorite things on my whiteboard in my sewing room is every year at the beginning of the year, I create my goals. And one year, it was last year, Brock went up to the whiteboard and wrote, "You got this," in the corner, kind of small. And it's like, it'll never get erased. It'll never get erased. It's my favorite. So I just leave it there. And then every so often he'll draw another little doodle or something near it in the corner. But it's just his way of saying, like, I see you, I love you, and I support you. And that means a lot. Expose your kids to it. And then they'll be your biggest cheerleaders, I promise.
They absolutely will. And I love the little like note from Brock, because in our workout area, we have a big mirror and some dry erase markers. I have written on there, like, you can do hard things, because sometimes workouts are just not fun. And one day I came downstairs and Charlie had written on the board, "I love you. You guys are the best." And I'm like, "Oh, that's sweet."
Those like unexpected little moments where you're like, oh,
yeah,
it just warms your heart.
it does. And they do see you. And, you know, Charlie's similar to Brock. Her room's been basically next to my sewing room pretty much since the day she was born, in 2 different houses, no less. But she's not interested yet in sewing, yet being the operative word there. And if she's not, she's not. That's fine. But she is always watching what I'm doing. And so I'll be making something. She'll be like, "Oh, I love that fabric. Can you make me one?" Or, "Ooh, that's really cute. Can you make this?" Or, "Hey mom, can you do this for me?" They see what we're doing. And I ask her if she wants to be involved. If she doesn't, that's fine. She might just hang out with me while I'm sitting on the couch doing something. But they see you finding your creative path, which encourages them to find theirs, whatever that may be for them.
I think we don't show enough adults being creative in front of children and giving them permission to use their imagination or make mistakes or create something from scratch with your own 2 hands. I feel like we're missing so much of that exposure to children. They're not going to get it in school right now. Like, it's so heavily focused on studies and books, and those things are important, but the imagination is so important. It's for so many reasons. We could go down that rabbit hole, but you guys know. I mean, it's how we problem solve. It's how we overcome obstacles and think on our feet. I feel like a lot of that knowledge and experience that I have with life benefited by my crafting and creating.
It's so important. And it's just so true on the problem solving. I can't tell you how many times I've hit a roadblock on a sewing project. I will actually lay in bed thinking about it or dream about it, hilariously enough.
I wake up and take notes.
And then I'll come up with the solution. And you persevere. I think the thing we're teaching them, which we don't understand, is perseverance. When you try something and it doesn't work, but you continue to find a solution, that's grit. That's perseverance. That's knowing that things might not always work out, but it will be okay. And that creatively, there is a messy middle sometimes. You might start out thinking this is going to be great. In the middle, it looks like it's crashing and burning. But then on the other side, it actually turns out really well. And it's encouraging the people around us, not just our children, but our friends, maybe even our parents, to persevere through those messy middles of life, not just creative projects. And that's kind of how creativity comes into our work in our adult life, and how we can find time for it, whether it's on a lunch break and having a mental respite while you're over lunch working on a creative project. Or I can't tell you how many projects I've taken with me to dance studios, voice lessons, violin lessons, sat in the car, just doing a creative project. Like, all those moments, instead of sitting in our phones, doom scrolling, doing something with our hands. One of the local boards I sit on, there's one woman in our board meetings. She is always knitting. Every single board meeting, she's sitting in the board meeting knitting. And no one looks at her sideways, because sometimes you need to have your hands active to be focused on what's going on. So don't apologize for that. Maybe not at work. Maybe not like a work meeting. That might be a little funky. But don't apologize for those moments that you might need to be physically doing something for your mind to stay focused on what is currently being discussed or done. When in doubt, you can always say like, hey, do you guys mind if I knit or crochet or hand stitch or whatever during this? It just kind of helps me stay engaged. Just be transparent, be open, have those conversations. And I don't think anybody will look poorly on you for it. Obviously, some settings might be worse than others. Like I said, maybe not in the middle of an important work meeting, but
while you're meeting with HR and you're sitting there.
Yeah. You're getting like your performance review and you're like, yeah, that's cool.
And I feel like if you're the person that feels like they need to be doing something with their hands to like be able to take in new information or hear what's the conversation, I feel like that's the kids that doodled in school while the teacher was teaching a lesson. So all of my notes and everything always had doodles all over it. And you know what? My son's the same way. He sent me a picture of his notes from college, and I was like, oh, let me see like the notes and stuff. And he's like, took all these notes, but then he doodles things that the teacher was talking about because it's a visual that reminds him of whatever the conversation was. So he'll doodle the person in history they were talking about or whatever. And it's a way for him to remember, but I just was like, that's so interesting that he still doodles his notes. He doodles, but they're value added doodles. But I just thought it was kind of funny. He loves to doodle. So anyways, I feel like people who do that, having that release with their hands, that energy released through their hands helps free up the noise in their brain so that they can take in the information. And it works for me. It works for my son. It probably works for a lot of people. And I feel like the kids that doodled a lot, I used to get in trouble for it. Travel and on the go. We kind of talked on this a little bit about taking projects or sewing in different places and those kind of things. But there are some portable projects that you can take pretty easily, like English paper piecing, hand embroidery, those kind of smaller hand projects that don't require a machine or a lot of sharp objects. Just make sure that if you are traveling like on a plane or things like that, that you are aware of what items are in your bag and what is allowed and what is not allowed. And I always recommend that if you are going to take a small pair of snips,
you can bring scissors on an airplane as long as they are no longer than 4 inches from the hinge point. Pull up the TSA website before you go through just to have it handy.
Exactly. And I always made sure that, because I would have maybe like a hand sewing needle or something like that as well. So I always kept them together in a pouch, like a little sewing kit with my threads and everything. So it was very obvious why I was bringing them with me. So just know, like I always recommend putting them in some sort of little pouch or carry-on zipped up thing so that they're not just willy-nilly flying around in your backpack. I think there's definitely a way that you can incorporate it. I do a lot of crocheting on planes, to be honest. I love it. That's my kind of handwork craft that I like to do on planes. Traveling on the go is a fun way to incorporate, especially when you're stuck on a plane.
Well, I think we've covered so many ways to fit creativity into those margins of your life. I think the final point we'll make before we go into Spool School is prioritize it the same way you prioritize your health, both physical and mental. We take time to read. We take time to work out. We take time to take care of the others around us. Mm-hmm. You also need to consider your creative outlet as a way to take care of yourself. And that goes back to that self-care and realizing, like, if you're taking 30, 45, 60 minutes every day to walk, run, exercise, you can take even 10 minutes for your creative release. And they do a lot of the same things in regards to releasing all the right dopamine and chemicals and stuff to make us feel good. But don't think that one replaces the other. They should be prioritized equally because one has a physical benefit, the other one has a mental benefit. When in doubt, just think about us in your brain going, you have 10 minutes, do something creative, or you have 10 minutes, think about your next project. Bethany and I are here to cheer you on and help you make that time in your schedule. That being said,
actually, I have a fun tip. Something I did recently, and someone told me, like, I know that there's a do not disturb button on my phone, but I don't want to silence everything on my phone. So how can I make this work? Because again, I know I'm not alone, but I'm going to call myself out. I tend to doom scroll. And it's a way of like kind of taking a mental break, but it's not a productive mental break. 10 minutes can turn into like 30 minutes. And I'm like, come out of it. And I'm like, how did I get here? One thing that's helped is there's a setting, and I know that you can do this on iPhone. I'm assuming you can do this on Android phones as well. But when you go into this screen on your phone, like when you swipe down and you have the do not disturb, there's a focus, and you can set personal focus things and by adding a new focus. And I have two. I have a personal one, which means I have that set to where my work apps, like my work Gmail, my work calendar, my work chat, and all of that, Google Chat and all of that, none of that sends me notifications outside of work hours on my phone, because it would distract me. Next thing I know, it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. I'm still working, but I was supposed to be done 6 hours ago, and I've lost my entire evening because those notifications just keep popping up, and I have this sense that I have to respond right now. So I set it where 5 or 6 o'clock every day, I go into, my phone goes into personal mode, and I will not get notifications, and it rolls through the weekend as well. So it's helping me create work-life balance and prioritize my personal time. The second one that I created was to-do list. And this is for my Saturday and Sunday, where it kind of mutes my social media notifications. I may schedule posts. I may still hop in from time to time, but I am not getting the notifications a lot like I typically would. And so it's not distracting me, and I'm able to be more productive with whatever I am working through. Family time, sewing time, filming, whatever. Use these tools that we have on our devices to help us not continue to be our own worst enemy when it comes to our bad habits. This is helping me break that. So one of my goals this year is to eliminate how much time I'm on my phone. I do have a lot of time on my phone because I do film with my phone and edit with my phone and those kind of things, but I'm eliminating how much time I'm spending on apps that are not productive for me. So use that to your benefit. If there's something that's distracting you, I went through and deleted a lot of games off my phone that I used to have because of Brock, and then I found myself playing it. And now I'm like, he's got his own phone. Why am I holding on to these games? Just know that that's a resource if you weren't aware of it. You got to use the tools that you have, and sometimes we just don't know what we have in front of us. And that was one of those things I was like, I didn't know I could do that for specific apps. Like, I don't have to mute my whole phone, but I can mute these apps that are creating a distraction for me. That I just wanted to share that because it's been very helpful for me to not lose valuable time on things that don't add value to my life.
Yep, that's perfect. So talking about adding value, let's dive into Spool School. Spool School is our segment that we highlight a quick sewing tip, hack, or technique, something to help you troubleshoot, something that we've learned from, or just some knowledge we would like to pass along. So Bethany, what do you got?
Mine is just a reminder to clean your machine today. Like today, if you're listening to this podcast, just continue listening, but go to your machine and take that little silver plate off the top and just do a little dusting. And I say this because I recently uncovered 3 machines, my 3 most used machines. It's embarrassing. And you guys know, if you know me and you've been following me for any length of time, I sit on a pedestal of like really preaching taking care of your machines, machine maintenance. It's your investment into your hobby. You've got to change your needles. You've got to clean it out. You've got to take care of it and then get it serviced regularly as well. I had been doing a lot of sewing and prep for my big retreat that I had, and I had not sat down and cleaned it since, and it showed. And it was, one of them I cleaned at Sewing Club, and the girls were like, I cannot believe that your machine looks like that. And it was giving me kind of a hard time, which rightfully so. But in a nice way, a fun way. But it was pretty bad. And so when I got home after cleaning out that one at Sewing Club, I went home and I cleaned out my FOF, cleaned out my Singer. I mean, it took some time because I hadn't done it in a little while. Calling myself out and reminding you all to clean your machines and take care of them. What about you, Audra?
Mine is to learn from my mistakes. I was recently working on a project and it called for a certain kind of interfacing on a certain part of the garment. And I did everything the pattern said to do. I put on the same interfacing it said to put, in the exact same spot it said to put. And I finished the entire project. And I washed it and I'm like, cool, we're done. This is off to the races. And I just didn't like it. I didn't like the way the interfacing was sitting. It felt too stiff. It didn't feel right on my body. It didn't look nice. And I put so much effort into this garment. It was very, very tailored. And I was really disappointed. What I did was I leaned on my knowledge of knowing, okay, I know for sure I need interfacing around the buttons. I know for sure I need interfacing around the neckline. But do I really need interfacing in this entire body section that's making this garment feel more like a shield than like a nice garment? I actually opened the whole thing back up. And so I opened up the lining, I turned it inside out, and I actually removed all the interfacing from the inside of the garment except for the spaces I knew it needed around the pockets, the buttons, the neckline. And in the midst of it, as I'm ripping all this out, praying that I don't cut the actual like fabric itself in the process, I'm like, is this the right decision? Is this the right decision? Am I doing the right thing? Oh my God, I don't know. But I just had to trust my knowledge. I'm like, okay, I know this. I've done this. I know what interfacing does. I know I've made garments. I know this is the right call. And I just had to trust that. So I'm like ripping out the interfacing and cutting out the interfacing. And it turned out so much better. It pressed nicer, it laid nicer, it wore nicer, and then I was able to wear it and feel proud about it. But my Spool School for you is to trust your gut. And if something isn't working the way it needs to for you, that's okay. So like if you're making something and it calls for interfacing, but you don't like the way that fits, if it's adding extra bulk, if it's not laying the way you want to, it's okay to go, I understand why it's here, but it doesn't work for me. Mm-hmm. And when in doubt, ask someone. Message Bethany and I, hey, I'm working on this. Does this really need to be here? Because I don't really love it. It's totally okay to look at the pattern and lean on your knowledge and go, I get it, but I don't think I need it for how this is going to work for me.
Especially with garments, but this applies to bag making and other types of sewing too, is the designer of that garment may be intended for that to be the style, but that doesn't mean it's your style. And what's great is the power of sewing. You have the permission to change it and alter it to be your fit and style and vibe, right? So I love that you're sharing that, because a lot of times, especially beginner sewers, they feel like they have to follow a pattern to a T. But that doesn't, and I think you should at the beginning, because you're learning what you like and what you don't like. But that doesn't mean you have to do it that way every time, or that if you didn't like how that was, that you don't like that pattern. It's not the pattern, it's just that one part of it, right? How can we change it? This is where that experience and knowledge and practice, just keep doing new things, keep trying new things. And then you get to the point where you're like Audra and I, where we can go, how could we make that different and work for us? Or how can we make it better and work for us? Or how can I utilize what I have and still get the same result, because maybe I don't have that exact stabilizer or interfacing. I love that you shared that, because sometimes we just need permission to be able to think outside the box and read between the lines. And it doesn't have to be like boom, boom, boom. Let's jump into our you love to see it. What is your you love to see it?
Inside baseball into how our house functions. Charlie's default is always, Mom, hey mom, hey mom, hey mom. And we're always like, Dad's here too. Like, it's not just me. The other morning, she's like, Mom, can you come up here? And I'm like, I'm in the shower. I'm like, I can't. You're just going to have to wait. I called up and I was like, hey, what do you need? And Dave's like, I already got it. She wanted you to iron her pants, but I ironed her pants. And I was like, you ironed her pants? And he's like, yeah. He's like, she didn't know I knew how to use an iron.
Sounds like she needs to learn to use an iron.
Well, she does need to learn how to use an iron. And she actually does. I just don't want her to do it alone. I just loved the fact that she had this eye-opening moment of, oh, Mom's not the only one in the house that knows how to use an iron. And, Dave just jumped right in and like ironed what she needed to get ironed. And I just had to laugh because I'm like, man, I wish I wasn't in the shower. I would have loved to have actually witnessed this conversation between these two going, I need Mom to iron my pants. And him going, I can iron your pants. And her going, huh? Because it's just like, yeah, that's not her default position. So you love to see when they don't need you. That's what you love to see,
Yeah.
basically.
And then what happens is you interject and want to feel needed. So,
I was
like
actually okay with this one. I'm okay not feeling
no,
needed.
no, but I'm just saying from experience this morning, Brock he was leaving to go to his first interview for a job. And I told him, I mean, he knows how to iron, but I was like, hey, sit your clothes out in the morning. I'll iron them for you. There was a learning curve. I did teach him how to properly use my Aliso iron since it goes up and down. That was a learning curve for him. But I went and did that for him. So it was one less thing he had to worry about this morning as he was getting ready to go to his first job interview. So sometimes it's nice to go feel needed and just go, I'll do that for you. I know you can, but you're home and I'll go back and do that for you. But yeah, no, I totally get it. That's so funny. My you love to see it is we have a new shower in my house. Yay! I have a 1972 ranch house, and the shower in the house, the main bathroom, it was original tile walls, and then like the tub was like really low and small. Like I don't know if people were just smaller in 1970s or what, but it was cast iron and it was awful. And so when I first got this house like 5 years ago, I had someone come in and like glaze the tile and tub with like a couple rounds of glazing because they were like discolored, and so it was all white and it actually looked really nice. And I was like, great. It's like, but again, I expected it to last longer than it did. The guy did not do the best job, so it started to chip and peel, and it was like putting lipstick on a pig. It was just not gonna work. So we finally decided that we were going to do it. I actually had someone come and give us a quote to do a whole new shower install, and it was like $15,000 for just a shower without even the sliding doors. I was like, yeah, no. So Brett is very handy, and I am too, but I had never done anything like this. And so we decided we were going to pick out what we wanted. We bought everything. While I was at my sewing retreat, he knocked it out. So I did not have to go through a weekend of not having like a functioning shower in our house. So it was great because I came back and the whole shower had been installed. The glass door, sliding doors, I picked out the whole thing, and I think we got it all done for like $2,500, which is pretty amazing because we had to replace like some support beams under there. I mean, this is an older house. It's over 50 years old. So it definitely needed a lot more work than, a typical thing, but it's all done. There's still some drywall and repainting that needs to be done. But that cast iron tub was a beast. He had used sledgehammer to get it out. Now, here's one thing, and I'm going to call him out. I don't know if he ever listens to our podcast, but I'm going to call him out real quick. So before we started this endeavor, he was like, do you want to replace the tile in there? It's not horrible, but it's not like my favorite, but it blends in with the grays and the blues and the whites. And I was like, well, I mean, I'd rather not, but if we need to, because we were worried about like, we didn't know how far the tile went under the tub, right? That kind of situation. So we're like, if we need to, we will. That man dropped the sledgehammer on the tile and broke him. And he says it was an accident. And I'm doing air quotes if you're listening. It was an accident. I think he always wanted to replace the tile. And I was kind of like, I don't know if we should spend the extra money right now. Like, it's fine. Maybe later. Like, it's not necessary. The tub is the problem. And I come back and there's 2 tiles just busted. So we went and picked out new tile this past weekend. And at some point, the only challenge with that is like the whole vanity has to come out. The toilet has to come out. And it's like a whole thing. So I'm like, okay, what's my next trip and when can he do that while I'm gone?
You're going to love it so much though.
It looks so great. Don't get me wrong. I love it. And I love the tile we picked out. So I'm excited about it. It'll really kind of complete the whole transformation. I think one thing that my son loves the most is our old shower. Not only was the tub really tiny, but the shower head was really low. So he had to duck under to wash his hair and everything. He couldn't just stand up under the shower. So now our shower head is, I don't know, 6'7" is the height, and he's 6'2", so he's like, I can actually stand under the shower head. He's so excited. We really do love it, and sometimes a home renovation DIY saves you a lot of money, and why you should, if you're single, find you a handyman to date. They come in handy. That's my you love to see it.
We hope this episode has been so helpful for you in just finding ways to sew in the margins of your life and realizing that that creative time is so important for your mental health and also inspiring others around you. We would love to hear from you. Reach out to us, DM us, follow us on the Social Sewist on Facebook. We would love to hear the most unique places you've sewn or created and answer our icebreaker question. And we look forward to seeing you in our next episode, which we will cover sewing trends and what we are seeing.
All right. See you then.
All right.
Bye, guys. Happy sewing.